If I could have your attention, please, everyone. May I present to you the real Sonic CD. That's right. Unexpected to some degree and controversial as heck, this to me is the game my mind considers the true culmination of Sonic CD's mechanical intentions. Is Sonic Time Twisted perfect? No. But is it phenomenally designed in many ways? Heck yeah. Though clearly not as polished, this game is even better than Mania in a few ways. Not surprising when you consider that it's been in development since 2005. Directed by Bryce Overbound Stock, Time Twisted is about as passion project as you can get. The small team who worked on this title deserves high praise for what they've created here. This isn't a ROM hack, this is a from-the-ground-up recreation of Sonic in 2D using Game Maker, and it's got a few extra tweaks thrown in. The physics, astonishingly similar to the Genesis titles, and improved in subtle ways. The animations, they can sometimes look a bit goofy, but they're effective at conveying what they need to convey, and I'm fairly certain nearly all of them are made from scratch. The gimmicks? Unless all of them came from Sonic Chaotix, the only 90s Sonic title I haven't played, this game is full of original gimmicks and design ideas. This is the biggest area where Time Twisted beats out Mania, because you never feel like you're just getting remixed ideas over and over. Even when ideas are brought back, they're heavily modified. But most ideas are, as far as I can tell, brand new. Where does one even start with a game like this? I suppose it's best to start with the plot, which takes place after Sonic CD. Metal Sonic has survived the events of the previous game, and is now set on resurrecting Robotnik, using unnamed alien technology. That's all you get, and that's all you really need. In Time Twisted, you have the choice of playing as Sonic, Tails, or Knuckles. Each retains their abilities from the Genesis-era titles, though with a few added options. Sonic has access to both the Sonic 2 Spin Dash and the Super Peel-Out now, as well as the Insta-Shield from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. On top of this, he also has access to 3 new shield variants on top of the existing elemental shields. These include the Wind Shield, which allows Sonic to hover horizontally for a time. There's the Rock Shield, which allows Sonic to shoot rocks at enemies, and finally, there's the Ice Shield, which shoots ice spikes to freeze enemies in place for a moment. One minor issue I noticed is that the shields don't seem to reflect projectiles, or at least not every projectile, including some that are remarkably similar to ones they were effective against in 3 and Knuckles. Still, this is something I barely noticed. The last major change I found was that hitting the jump button after being shot by a spring now curls Sonic back into a ball, allowing you to maintain relative safety in all situations if you're quick thinking. Also worth noting is that Sonic can still use the shield abilities when invincible or when in supersonic form, which is a nice bonus. He can also drop out of super mode at will, allowing you to use it much more tactically, though it's difficult for me to consider him very super since his jump is the same height as normal Sonic and his spin dash isn't any faster either. Tails is pretty much exactly how he was in 3 and Knuckles, though he has access to an ability, maybe a glitch, that I know he doesn't have in Mania, and I don't remember him having elsewhere. This is the ability to launch himself extremely high into the air when you start flying initially, by tapping an alternate button to fly immediately after pressing the jump button. Knuckles is also exactly like his old self, though now he can protect himself from some obstacles and enemies well at full running speed by swinging his fists like a goofball. Probably the least useful of the new abilities because rolling into a ball is usually preferred, but it still got me out of a few tight situations where my lack of proper reaction would have normally ended in taking damage, so it's worth including. As you would expect, Sonic is still very much the normal difficulty mode, with Tails being easy and Knuckles being hard. Oh boy, that's truer here than ever. Playing as Knuckles can be brutal thanks to his short jump. Meanwhile, Tails was such cake that I ended up with over 50 lives by the end. Only Sonic can do the final level, however, and he's also the only one with a super form. A bit unfortunate, but by no means a deal breaker since it's par for the course. Speaking of, The goal aside from getting through the stage is to find all 7 time stones in the past and all 7 Chaos Emeralds in the future. And this is where the game starts to channel Sonic CD in the way Sonic CD should have been doing all along. When I started this game, I expected that the comparisons with CD would be fairly surface level, but the more I played, the more I noticed the masterful blend of traditional 2D Sonic design and CD's more open, vertical design. Just like CD, most stages offer huge amounts of vertical exploration. Unlike CD, this is designed with Sonic's platforming style in mind. Rather than just finding a spring or a set of stairs to reach the top of a level, you more often utilize hills, ramps, and secret paths to traverse stages. Bottomless pits are almost non-existent, meaning this always feels safe as well, even when you fail. And you can fairly freely explore nearly every stage from beginning to end and end to beginning, with very few roadblocks preventing you from backtracking. Timing out also doesn't exist, the clock simply stopping at 10 minutes, so the choice to stay in the level is entirely your own. This is definitely the best part of Time Twisted in my opinion. The level design here is extremely varied and so free and open, it's nearly always on the level of Sonic Mania. But where Mania looked at 3 and Knuckles levels and placed more emphasis on the flow of stages, and ultimately focused on skilled use of momentum in linear levels, Time Twisted is what would happen if you looked at 3 and Knuckles levels and instead put the emphasis on the types of exploration offered in them. This translates to a game that still feels like 3 and Knuckles, but in a way that undoubtedly channels the intentions of CD. The levels also accommodate for Knuckles and Tails really well, with many secrets only they can get to, including a secret developer room or something in the first act of the final stage. Even when the game uses some of the weaker design choices from CD's level design, like square platforms, it does it in a significantly improved way, by almost exclusively using selective collisions so that you can move past platforms horizontally and jump through the bottom of them vertically, smoothing the traversal of them out. This is something CD still did, of course, but it was equally compelled to make platforms completely solid for no reason. That's one of those small changes you might not notice. If done well, it can greatly improve the game. If done poorly, it can ruin the game. And this must have been tested to hell and back because it indeed works really well here. The game doesn't stop there though, improving a lot of subtle and not so subtle issues CD had in spades. Levels feel organic, and rather than being separated into sections where certain gimmicks were placed haphazardly, each gimmick is woven seamlessly into the experience. This includes the time travel. Signs to travel between the past and future still exist here, but instead of giving you that respective status, simply passing the sign at a high enough speed allows you to time travel instantly. The one downside to this is that it's no longer a mechanic that relies on skilled use of Sonic's speed. If you're not going fast enough, you can simply spin dash past the sign. This is especially unfortunate since the level design here could accommodate for CD's type of time travel much better, but still, this is an entirely inoffensive alternative that I'm more than happy to have as a substitute because it actually works well. The signs are also infinitely reusable, and both time periods are required to get the best ending, meaning 100% of the levels are viable for making progression. And finding a place to time travel also hints at where special stage rings might be, since one will always be nearby after you've traveled through time. Speaking of special stages, they're pretty great. They're effectively pseudo 3D races against Metal Sonic across increasingly difficult obstacle courses. The reason they work so well is twofold. Firstly, only the final Time Stone special stage feels too difficult. It's definitely learnable, but as far as I can tell, it's only really completable by taking a very specific route, unless you get really lucky. It's just a huge difficulty spike, leaving it less satisfying than the others, but otherwise, they're fun, and they're not hair-pullingly difficult or unfair like some of the other special stages in normal Sonic games. But the other major reason they're so enjoyable is that you can retry them if you fail simply by spending an extra life. This is absolutely genius, not only because it makes the stages more palatable, but also because it gives the player more reasons to explore and find rings and extra lives. The synergy between these systems is unreal. To my surprise, this is also the first time I really felt compelled to speak positively about enemies in 2D Sonic games. Usually they're just sort of there, which is intentional so that they don't become a burden that distracts from the intended flow of the game. As such, they're usually too basic to say much about, but here enemies are often engaging on multiple levels, without being too complicated, like these floating shark whale guys who appear in several levels. Once they appear on screen, they continue to chase you, zooming back and forth at a consistent height. This sounds annoying, but they're balanced just right to be engaging to deal with. You can either lose them by dropping way below them, launching way above them, or by going so fast they can't keep up. This gives you alternative ways to take care of them outside of destroying them, but makes them more than just a momentary roadblock if you're not careful. Timing ramps and aiming Sonic as he falls so that you can destroy them without losing your momentum is fantastic fun. Seeing one of these enemies and then making quick-fire decisions for how to use the level design to tackle them is great. The bosses are probably the weakest bit, though they're still pretty much always better than those in CD. At their weakest, they're about on par with the more boring fights in 1 through 3 in Knuckles. At their best, they're genuinely enjoyable to fight, and offer interesting challenges. Still, they're far from perfect, even though their ambition is admirable. There are few cheap instant deaths in some of them, and depending on who you're playing as and what time period you're in, they can be a bit cheap. Like, the bug in Viridian Valley Act 2 is insane for Knuckles if you're in the future. There's no point in even trying it because your windows to do damage are so few and so difficult to take advantage of. It's a war of attrition, so I'd advise you just do it in the past instead. This same sort of difficulty is true for the final boss when playing as Knuckles too, so be ready for a bit of frustration. About the only thing in this game that doesn't one-up Sonic CD, and isn't on par with all of the other games mechanically, is that it has the same issue as CD in the music tracks for power-ups overriding each other. This means, just like in CD, getting speed shoes after invincibility makes it easy to miss when the invincibility runs out. Speaking of the music, in Time Twisted, it isn't perfect, but most of it is still pretty darn great. The 2 tracks that I expect people will see as the weakest links are the theme used when Metal Sonic is first revealed, and the Chaos Emerald special stage theme. I actually think the Metal Sonic theme is pretty rad. It's a short track, but it has an off-kilter, progressive math rock vibe to it that I'm a big fan of. It does its job well, I'm just not totally sure most people will get it. The other track that has some great ideas but feels somewhat empty and unfinished is the song used during the Chaos Emerald special stages. During the middle section of the song, it feels like it doesn't really know where to go, and I feel it lacks proper backup instrumentation to fill things out. Other than these potential hiccups, the music is really strong, with my favorite tracks being The Eroding Winds of Change for the future version of Raging Ruins, Sculptures for Frigid Fortresses Past, Calm Before the Storm, used in Drifting Dynamo's Past, and the new Drowning jingle. Honestly, going back through the soundtrack to choose my favorites, nearly every single track is so damn good, easily as strong as a legit Sonic soundtrack. Seriously. Aesthetically, the game is strong too. I don't think it takes too many risks, but it knows how to use its choices effectively. The color of the water in Tidal Tube's past is very effective at making the whole wide-open level design unsettling. It channels all the things that keep me uncomfortable in water levels in video games, because the level design works with the tiles and colors. I would be a hypocrite if I didn't mention that this game also commonly uses the simple patterns Sonic is aesthetically tied to, which I felt were overused in CD. And while, yes, I think the look as a whole could have been made much stronger here if they'd done something less simple, the look of each stage is a lot more balanced than in CD. Backgrounds get a lot more of an emphasis because of the use of open space. Plant tiles, signs, and other stage elements are a lot more detailed and make much more sense in their placement and design. Highly contrasting colors are used in smarter ways, which help to lessen the impact of the simple patterns and place more emphasis on the detailed elements of the tile sets. Like I said, I personally still would have preferred that the tile sets used these patterns more sparingly, but I think the consistency in visual design is strong enough here that I can still enjoy the aesthetic in spite of that. Time Twisted is a bit unpolished compared to Mania, but unlike Mania, it doesn't rely on nostalgia nearly at all. Nearly every stage gimmick is new, and all of the stage themes are original. On top of that, the old design that is here is given new ideas to make it feel fresh. You'd be surprised at how much just a different shape or size of a loop can spice things up. Part of me wants to go on, describing all of the interesting things about this game, but not only would it start to get a bit redundant since many of these things aren't uniquely interesting from the topics we've already discussed, but I also don't want to spoil everything the game has to offer. If you haven't already, play this game. It shouldn't be too difficult to run, it has controller support, it's free, and it's fantastic. While nostalgia still has me liking 3 and Knuckles more, and the sheer polish of Mania has me preferring it as well, this is among those games as one of the strongest Sonic games I've ever played, and in some cases, again, it even beats these games out. If you're a fan of Sonic, including and especially Sonic CD, you are doing yourself a disservice by not playing Time Twisted. And if you, like me, really struggle to get any enjoyment out of CD, this is also the game for you. What do you guys think? Have any of you played Sonic Time Twisted? Did you enjoy it? How well does it rank compared to the other Genesis titles? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.